From the studios of Ave Maria Radio in Ann Arbor, this is Veterans Radio. And now, here's your host, Ken Rogie.
And good morning, and welcome into Veterans Radio. We got a great show today, Gary.
I'm looking forward to the interviews.
Oh, man, I had an experience last night interviewing our first guest. Well, I'll tell everybody. It's Chuck Yeager.
I'm jealous.
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. And in our control room this morning, we have Bob Gould, our intrepid engineer this morning.
101st Airborne, all the way, hoo-ah!
Hoo-ah! Oh, it's too early in the morning for that. And
Airborne,
we also,
baby.
And we also have Erwin and Megan in there to help him, and so we're ready to go.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Gary. I forgot to introduce you. Gary Lilly's my co-host this morning.
Here I am. Okay, Seabees, can do.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're going to the news, Ken. We've got a couple of items that I think are of interest to everyone. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund has put out a call nationwide for volunteers to help read the more than 58,000 names inscribed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in the days leading up to this year's 25th anniversary of the wall. The reading of the names will take place at the wall for 65 hours over a 4-day period, beginning with an opening ceremony on Wednesday, November 7th at 3 p.m. There are 2 registration deadlines for those interested in reading names. Those who want to read a specific name have until Friday, August 17th to send in their requests, and volunteers for general reading have until Friday, September 14th to register. Notification of your acceptance of reading time will be sent by October 1st. To register, go to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund website at the www.vvmf.org, which stands for Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Ken, I've done it, and it's a true honor. There are so many amazing scenes and pictures in my mind of the reading of the names. It's something that people must experience, even if it's just to witness it.
And it's amazing to think that it's been 25 years since that wall was inaugurated. It just doesn't seem feasible. It seems like it's been like 10 years, but
that's the way it feels.
Yeah,
I was there for the second of the 10th anniversary. I did not read names. I guess I read for the 20th anniversary. But when you see people reading, and they'll read down their list of 20 names, and then they'll come to one and they'll say, "And my brother, PFC," yeah. And the man who saved my life on July 7th, 1969. Yeah. And I got to tell you, it's and an old lady was helped up to the stage, and a younger lady, probably her daughter, was reading names, and that lady read names, and then the old lady stepped up and said, "And my son, Marine Lance Corporal, so-and-so."
Oh, man.
And then she was helped off the stage, very wobbly.
That's got to be very emotional.
Well, what was really neat about that was all of the Vietnam veterans hugging her at the bottom and saying, "Thank you, Mom, calling her Mom, and her smiling.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a message we on Veterans Radio will promote over and over. There's a new veterans organization known as the Veterans of Modern Warfare. Its mission statement says the purpose of VMW is to provide education, advocacy, and support for veterans affected by the complexities of modern warfare. Ken, unlike what civilians and perhaps older vets think, the more modern veterans organizations don't promote bars and drinking. They are in it to do good for each other, and through that for themselves. There's a lot of healing that comes from being around your peers, as you know, and doing good for others. Joining an organization like Veterans of Modern Warfare will allow you to honor the memory of those who died, aid and comfort their survivors, encourage patriotism, and aid hospitalized, disabled, and needy war veterans and their dependents. Vietnam Veterans of America does a lot of that.
Right, we do.
Membership in VMW is open to any of our wartime military veterans who served on active duty during any period of wartime beginning August 2nd, 1990, and continuing to this day. If you're interested, call toll-free 888-445-9891. That's 888-445-9891. 9891, or go to their website at www.modernveterans.com. I think we can get a link on our website at Veterans Radio.
Yeah, we'll have Dale do that. Also, Gary, they're having a cognizant meeting for them on the 17th of July at the American Legion Hall in Saline. That's at 7 o'clock in the evening on the 17th of July.
Well, great. It's really important that the word get out, and the people know that they need not have served in Iraq or Afghanistan. They were a part of it, just like with Vietnam veteran. I've never heard of a World War II era veteran, and so this idea of Vietnam era veterans is one that I've never taken to.
Yeah, well, and we've had a lot of conflicts since 1990, so there's
Indeed
a lot of guys available.
Indeed we have. Okay, as part of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management's commitment to providing federal employment assistance to veterans, there'll be Linda Springer will host a 1-hour Veterans Preference webcast on Thursday, July 12th, 2007 at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It's a live event that will cover the following topics. What is preference and why do we give it? When does it apply? Who gets preference? Types of preference, documentation, other subjects. If you're a veteran, you are entitled in many cases to preference in hiring, and there's a case here in Michigan being handled by a local attorney, Elmer White, in which the city of Ann Arbor is accused of ignoring veterans' preference in their hiring. The lower courts upheld the city of Ann Arbor, as did the appeals court. I don't think they were friendly courts. Now it's up to the Michigan Supreme Court to hear this case, and if they don't hear it, veterans' preference is lost in the state of Michigan. Mm-hmm. So let's hope that the Supreme Court does the right thing, and good luck, Elmer White, on your case. Welcome home. Each week on Veterans Radio, we welcome home servicemen and women who have been stationed around the world in the service of our country. 82 sailors received a rousing welcome home celebration from the Peas Greeters in Portsmouth, New Hampshire on July 4th. The service members were en route to their base in California. A very special welcome home celebration was held in March for PFC Daniel Tingle at Sharkey's Casino in Gardnerville, Nevada. PFC Tingle suffered severe injuries to his left foot in a mortar attack. Over 200 soldiers returned to Hurlburt Eglin Air Force Base and Duke Field in Florida on July 5th. In a parade on Saturday, June 30th, the residents in White Pine, Michigan honored Major Paula Simmons for her service. Well done. Soldiers from the 635th Regional Support Group of the National Guard were honored in a welcome home celebration on June 29th. Army Specialist Jeremiah Homuth was honored in a very special welcome home celebration by friends and family on June 29th in Huntley, Illinois. Staff Sergeant Wilfredo Roig was honored with a welcome home celebration by the citizens of Millville, New Jersey. We want to hear about your troops coming home. Go to veteransradio.net and send us an email.
And we're back on Veterans Radio, and our first guest needs a little introduction. He's retired Air Force Brigadier General Chuck Yeager. He's had a remarkable career. He was a double ace and was shot down in World War II, and went on to be the first man to break the sound barrier and had a highly successful Air Force career. But we're not here to talk about his life today. We're talking about the P-51 Mustang. And I spoke with Chuck Yeager last night and recorded our conversation. In your bio, it talks about a Malcolm's hood. What is a Malcolm's hood?
Oh, you mean a Malcolm? Well, actually, the first P-51s that were built had a birdcage canopy on it, we called it. And basically the birdcage canopy, was small squares of plexiglass, and visibility wasn't too good, so they put a Malcolm hood canopy on it. And all it did was kind of round it out and make a bubble, but it really wasn't as good as the P-51D that finally came out with a birdcage canopy, or with a canopy on it that was streamlined, big, teardrop shape, and it was beautiful.
Uh-huh. During your training, you flew the P-39. What was it like to go from the P-39 to a P-51?
Well, actually, it wasn't bad. The P-39, of course, is a tricycle gear airplane, and basically we'd flown tail draggers in primary and basic and advanced T-6s which we flew when we graduated and got our wings. Then when we got back into the P-51, it wasn't very difficult to fly a tail dragger again, since we'd already been trained in tail draggers. Mm-hmm. So the thing was, it was really a very powerful airplane with that, with the Packard-built Merlin engine in it. And let me make one thing real clear to you. There's never an American P-51 with a Rolls-Royce engine in it.
There wasn't?
It was always a Packard-built Merlin engine, made in the United States.
Oh, I was under the impression they had Rolls-Royces in them.
No, Rolls-Royce designed the Merlin engine, but the United States got the license to build them, and the Packard Motor Car Company built all of those Packard Merlins, and also a few Continental Merlins were built by Continental Motor Company.
Wait, how powerful was that engine?
About 1,600 horsepower. But the main thing that made it wonderful was it had a two-stage blower in it, a low blower and a high blower. And with the high blower, you could get almost as much horsepower of the engine at 35,000 feet that you got at sea level.
Was that like a turbocharger?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, blower. We call them blowers.
Okay. The Mustang, was that the first plane with a four-bladed prop?
No, it never didn't make much difference. A lot of airplanes, like first Mustangs, had three-bladed props on the ones that had the Allison engine.
And what was your first impression of the Mustang, the first time you saw it?
Well, it's a pretty airplane, and basically, when we flew it, see, what happened was, in 1942 and 43, the bombers were escorted by P-38s and P-47s. And I hate to say this, but the Germans shot down just about every P-38 in the theater. I mean, really clobbered them, because they couldn't outrun or outclimb or outdive the 109s and 190s. So basically, they only had 4 hours of fuel. So they stay with the bombers for two hours, turn around, and come home. Well, the bombers were, only about two-thirds of the way to the target by then. So when the escort left, the Germans went in and really started hammering the guys. And then, but when the Mustang came over, it had additional fuel tanks in it, and consequently, and also was heavier, and it had 8 hours of endurance. Mm-hmm. We flew many 8-hour missions. That meant we could stay with the bombers all the way to the target and back.
How much transition training did you have to go through?
None. We picked up the P-51. We got to England in November of 43, and they put us at a base down called Radenwood, which was nothing but a mud hole, and that was in 9th Air Force. Well, they wanted the Mustangs in 8th Air Force, because the 8th Air Force was what was doing the long-range bombing.
Right.
9th Air Force was a tactical Air Force, just around France and places like that. So consequently, what we did, we went up to where they were assembling the airplane, and a sergeant showed you how to start it. We didn't have any books, but basically, airplanes are a lot like cars. You learn one car, not too difficult to learn another car. Uh-huh. So consequently, when the guy showed us how to start, we all, I reckon there's about 12 of us, picked up the first bunch, and flew back to our base down at Leiston, and then the next day we're sitting over Leipzig, Germany, fighting in them.
That's a big transition there.
That's just the way it was, And some of the funny things, and if you're a pilot, you'll understand this. In the P-39, when we flew instruments, we used a needle ball airspeed, otherwise to fly instruments with. Mm-hmm. There was no flight indicator, which we call, and that's the way we flew instruments in the P-39, was flying the needle and the ball and airspeed. Hell, if the airspeed started building up, you knew the nose was down, and if it didn't change, you knew you were level. And consequently, when we took off the next day after picking up the P-51s, there's about, I don't know, probably 32 or so Mustangs, and we were sitting over Leipzig, Germany, escorting bombers in them the second flight.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, about five days later, or about 5 missions later, one of the guys, we were sitting in a Nissan Hut talking, and he said, hey, you know, there's an instrument in the instrument panel on the P-51 said, if you uncage it, it stays level with the ground. And we said, oh, you're kidding. He said, so next time we flew it, yeah, there's a so-called flight indicator, but you got to turn it on, and it stays level with the ground, regardless which way you turn the airplane, and made it easy to fly instruments. But that's the way we learned, you know.
Yeah. What made the Mustang so special?
Well, everything I've said up until now. Obviously, 8 hours, had 650 caliber machine guns. Each gun fired around 850 rounds a minute, and you carried about almost 2,400 rounds of ammunition. That's almost 30 seconds of firepower in your airplane. And, of course, you never used over about 3-second bursts because you burned your barrels out. And that plus 8 hours of endurance, plus a top speed of 430 miles an hour, that we could outrun, outdive, and outclimb all the 109s or 190s. And that's the reason it was so special. You know, it was a hell of an airplane. When the Germans, like I shot down my first airplane over Berlin, well, when the Germans saw Mustangs over Berlin, they said, oh, Goring said, man, we've lost the war. Because and also, a couple missions, we went from England to Russia and landed in Russia and stayed there for a week, and then flew from Russia to Brindisi, Italy. Hell, you're talking about 2,400 miles.
That's a long way.
Yeah, that's a long ways. And also being so fast, and we flew most of the missions when we were escorting about 36,000 feet.
Your bio says you flew the B, C, and D models. Why did you wind up flying all three? Were they shot down?
Well, that's the way they were produced.
Oh, I see.
See, like the B had the birdcage canopy. It was as fast as a D was. But then when we got the teardrop canopy on the Ds, and also there's a couple of other improvements. One was a lead computing gun sight on the D. That made it very easy this gun sight made it possible for you to compute lead. All you had to do is put the pipper on the enemy airplane and range the little diamonds on its wingtip, and it would compute the proper lead. And once you got it settled in, you pull the trigger and you blew a hole right through the airplane. And also, we got G-suits in the D. And when the G-suits came, you know, it gave us, we compressed our G-suits, gave us capability of pulling about 6 Gs or 7 Gs, which was the max that the airplane would pull before it broke up. You could pull 6 Gs without blacking out, and without a G-suit, you black out at about 4 Gs.
Right.
Those things, you know, Germans never did get G-suits, and it gave us a hell of a. Yeah. Now the Mustangs, as I said before, the P-38s weren't. You get arguments about guys that flew P-38s would argue with you, but hell, they didn't last very long over there. But when they sent them to the Pacific, the P-38 was a low-altitude fighter. It had an Allison engine in it with had a turbo supercharger. But the thing was, it could outrun and outclimb and outdive the Zero. So the Zero couldn't catch it. It could not get away from the German fighters, which were faster and could turn better. And consequently, they did real well in the Pacific. And basically, the Mustang shot down more airplanes than any other fighter in World War II.
That's
and there's over 5,000 German fighters, and they finally put them in the Pacific later on. See, there were no Marines, no Navy in Europe. They were all Air Force and Army.
Right.
And the Marines and the Navy was in the Pacific, and they gradually, as the war wound down the summer of '45, they moved some P-51 units into the Pacific and used them to escort B-29s, whereas theretofore the Navy fighters couldn't get high enough or go fast enough to escort B-29. They flew off carriers and did a lot of battleship damage.
You were shot down on your 8th mission. What happened? How'd he
God
get you?
shot me down.
How'd he do that?
Well, basically, I was flying tail end Charlie. I'd taken off as spare. Like if you have 16 airplanes in your squadron, you have four flights of Finger 4, you call them, which is it splits up into two elements when you get into a fight. And I took off as spare, and the guy I boarded, and I filled in as number 4, and we were going down to southern France to hit some Fokker 190 plants or airfield, and consequently, I called in. We got jumped by 3 Fokker 190s, and I picked them up coming in from high at 6 o'clock, and I called them in, and we all broke back into them. I made a head-on pass with them, and 2 or 3 were shooting at me, and I'd started shooting too, and I got hit with a bunch of 20-millimeter cannon, took the prop off and the engine, part of the left wing, and the airplane just fell apart around me. And I come down and opened my parachute, and then ran around France for a couple of days until I contacted a woodcutter. We'd always been warned about, on survival and evasion, to only fool with very poor people. And, I went up to this woodcutter. He didn't speak English, and I didn't speak French, and he realized I had a few holes in my legs and fragments of 20 millimeters in my hand. But basically, in my survival kit that we carried in our flying suit pocket, we had sulfur powder. Do you know what sulfur powder is?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Well, I sprinkled sulfur powder on my wounds and wrapped my legs with some parachutes, so I never did get infected. And then when I contacted this woodcutter, and he was gone about 3 hours, and he came back with a guy that spoke English and said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to get to Spain, which is a neutral country. See, in Europe, there were 3 neutral countries: Spain, Switzerland, and Sweden.
Uh-huh.
And if you got into a neutral country, then you were interned, and usually the American consulate picked you out of jail and put you up in a hotel, gave you money and stuff like that. And it's a pretty soft life. And well, I ran around with the French Maquis, the Free Frenchman, underground.
Yes.
For about 2 months, or a month and a half, and I stayed with them, traveled with them, and I didn't go out on the raids, but the British would drop canisters in parachutes at night. They had radios that they communicate with England, and they'd drop these parachutes had plastic explosives and counterfeit money, counterfeit bread and meat ration stamps and guns and all of this stuff, and they were pretty well armed, and they did a lot of damage to the Germans, and blowing up railroad tracks and bridges and things like that. And I'll tell you something, a lot of Americans don't realize the French saved thousands and thousands of American airmen's lives, and I owe my neck to them. And boy, I'll tell you, when some guy starts bad-mouthing France, that's fighting words to me. And it's too damn bad. The press doesn't, give them credit for what they did. And it was something. And but anyway, I spent a couple of months in Spain. It was really, it was really soft, like living in a hotel and swimming, and eating good, and money, and all that stuff. And it was finally. The United States, Spain had no access to petroleum products, so the United States started negotiating with Spain for us fighter pilots that were interned in Spain, and said, we'll give you gasoline for the pilots. Hell, I don't know how many gallons we were worth, but they negotiated and traded gasoline to the Spaniards, and then Spaniards turned us over to the British at Gibraltar, and they flew us back to England. I went back to my squadron after D-Day, and then flew another, I don't know, 40 or more missions or 50 more missions, and shot down a total of a dozen Germans, 12 and a half, and it was I enjoyed it, and and then I came home, and that was the end of the Mustangs. The D's we flew when I got back. Man, I really loved them. They were one fine airplane, and our mechanics were guys that were good in maintenance, and they were also. When I come home, I thought I was 22 years old. Well, the crew chiefs and the maintenance guys were about 10 years older than we were.
Uh-huh.
The pilots were young, and the maintenance guys were older, and they sort of looked at us like their sons, and it'd really get to them when one of the guys wouldn't come back.
Well, General, I want to thank you very much for being with us on Veterans Radio. It's been an honor, and I wish you good luck.
Hey, I want to put Victoria on for a second. I'll give you our website. We have a foundation that we support kids in education.
Uh-huh.
It's really good, and I'll put it on. She can give it to you, and then it's been fun talking to you.
I enjoyed it, sir. Thank you very much.
Hi there.
Hi.
I wanted to just tell you about our website, chuckyeager.com, for people who wanted to find out more about General Yeager and also about the General Chuck Yeager Foundation. We support Marshall University's Yeager Scholars, which is a 4-year full scholarship program, semester abroad, summer at Oxford, as well as Air Academy, which is a week of aviation instruction at Oshkosh, EAA, Experimental Aircraft Association, and as well as a few other things, including fish habitat, hunter education, even Down syndrome folks. And so it's quite a variety. And we General Yeager take no administration costs out of the foundation at all.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And what is that website for the foundation?
www.chuckyeager.com.
Okay.
ChuckYeager.
Thank you, Victoria. It's a pleasure talking to you, and I want to thank the General very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
The Medal of Honor is the highest award for valor in combat given a member of the Armed Forces of the United States. There have been over 3,400 recipients of the nation's highest award. This is one of them.
Lance Corporal Richard Anderson rolled onto a live grenade, saving the life of his companions. Details after this. While conducting a patrol during the early morning hours in the Quang Tri province in Vietnam, Anderson's reconnaissance team came under heavy volume of automatic weapons and machine gun fire from a numerically superior and well-concealed enemy force. Although painfully wounded in both legs and knocked to the ground during the initial moments of the fierce firefight, Anderson assumed a prone position and continued to deliver intense suppressive fire in an attempt to repulse the attackers. Moments later, he was wounded a second time by an enemy soldier who had approached to within 8 feet of the team's position. Undaunted, he continued to pour a relentless stream of fire on the assaulting unit, even while a companion was treating his leg wounds. Observing an enemy grenade land between him and the other Marine, Anderson immediately rolled over and covered the lethal weapon with his body, absorbing the full effects of the detonation.
The Medal of Honor series is a production of Veterans Radio.
And we're back on Veterans Radio, and our next guest is Harry Stewart. Harry was a member of the Tuskegee Airmen at World War II, flying combat missions to aid the Allied forces. At the age of 17 and aware of his imminent conscription into World War II, he both took and passed a military exam designated to identify potential pilots. As a result, he entered flight training at Tuskegee, Alabama, and eventually was awarded his wings and a commission while still a teenager. And he went to Italy in 1944, where he flew 43 combat missions with the 332nd Fighter Group. And on April 1st, 1945, he shot down 3 German aircraft, a feat that earned him the Distinguished Flying Cross. He received an honorable discharge in 1950, but stayed in the reserves, eventually retiring as a lieutenant colonel. And one of the highlights of his military career was in 1949,
by winning an Air Force national flying competition as one of an all-black trio of pilots. In 2004, the Tuskegee Airmen National Historical Museum honored Stewart and his Top Gun teammates by reuniting them with a competition trophy which had been missing for 55 years. Harry, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you very much. I was listening to your previous interview there with Chuck Yeager, and I'll tell you, it really gave me a feeling of nostalgia. I flew contemporary with him, and during the same period, and the same type of aircraft, the P-51, also the B, C, and D models, and everything Chuck talked about, it just gave me a tremendous feeling of nostalgia.
Well, I'm glad we could bring you back some memories.
Thank you.
Hey, I got to ask you, first of all, this trophy was missing for 55 years. What happened?
Well, it got lost, or so we were told. Anyway, this competition took place in 1949 out at Las Vegas Air Force Base, which is now Nellis Air Force Base. But it was an Air Force-wide competition, which was won by the team representing the 332nd Fighter Group. At that contest, there was an award made, and there was a loving cup that was supposed to pass around every 2 years to the follow-up teams in the competition. But evidently, that cup was lost, and it wasn't recovered until just maybe something like 4 years ago. Some young lady doing some research found that it was packed away in the archives of the National Museum down in Dayton, Ohio. Anyway, it has been recovered, and now it's on display down at Dayton, Ohio, and anybody who's down there at the Air Force Museum will be able to see it.
And when you were going through Tuskegee, what aircraft did you fly?
Well, in Tuskegee, the same ones that Chuck Yeager flew. The training that received was the exact same training that all cadets were receiving in the Air Corps, Army Air Corps at the time. But we started out with the PT-17 in primary training. Then we went to the BT-13, the Vultee, and then we went to the AT-6 in advanced training. After the advanced training, I had a 10-hour indoctrination in the P-47 Warhawk. That's the plane the Flying Tigers flew. Then I went to Walterboro, South Carolina for a fighter transition in the P-47, and then overseas to Italy, where I flew the P-51 and first the B model, then the C, and then the D.
And did you have the same transition training that Chuck Yeager had?
Yes, the exact same.
So you get there and get in the airplane and fly?
Yep, just get in the airplane and fly. That's it.
Can't do that today.
No, not very much. I am still flying, by the way.
Are you really?
Yeah, I have a motor glider. It's a regular glider, a Schweitzer glider that has a 112 horsepower Lycoming engine on the front of it there. So it's a self-launcher, and what I do is I just fly it up to altitude, and I shut the engine off and glide around like a regular glider.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you transitioned to the P-51 in Italy.
Yes.
And how soon after you got there did you fly your first combat mission?
I would say a matter of a few days. I would say a matter of about 4 days, 4 or 5 days.
What was your first impression of the Mustang?
Well, I never before or since flown anything quite like it. The P-40 was a fine aircraft, but it was a vintage type of aircraft, and the P-47 was a radial engine, but it was sort of a Mack truck type of aircraft. But the 51, it was sprite, it was spry, it was fast, it was highly maneuverable, and as Chuck mentioned, it had that two-stage blower on it where the efficiency was just about as good at 35,000 feet as it was at sea level.
Mm-hmm. And you flew the P-51 as part of the Red Tail Squadron, and I'm sure everybody knows by now that's the Tuskegee Airmen. And how did the plane that you flew then compare to, say, the Germans or the Italians?
I would say that the plane was superior to the planes that the Germans were flying at the time. There, the only encounters that I had with the German planes was the Focke-Wulf 190 and the Messerschmitt 109. And in each of those situations there, I felt as though the P-51, under most circumstances, would outperform those aircraft. Of course, I had gotten to combat in the latter stages of the war there, and it may not have been a fair comparison as far as pilot to pilot is concerned, because a lot of the really experienced German pilots had been shot down at that time, and they were much younger, more inexperienced pilots flying by the time that I got overseas.
How did your training in the States aid you when you got to Europe? Was it realistic, or did you have to learn other tactics and so on?
Most of it was pretty realistic. Most of the learning curve was done by those people that preceded us, and when we got there, it was pretty much like the training had taught us at the time.
When did you get to Italy?
I got there at the first of the year. I got there, I guess it was around just January 2nd, 1945.
Uh-huh.
So I flew 43 combat missions between the beginning of the year, that's January, early January, until the end of the war in May.
We're talking with Harry Stewart, a World War II veteran who flew the P-51. Harry, you shot down 3 airplanes on one day, on April 1st, 1945.
That's correct.
Tell us about that experience. What happened?
We had gone on what was known as a fighter sweep. Most of our missions were bomber escort. During the close of the war, the last weeks of the war there, we went on what was known as fighter sweeps. We were given permission to leave the bombers and actually attack targets of opportunity. And while we were roving around Wells, Australia, 8 of us were jumped by approximately 16 German aircraft. And it was just 2 of those planes that I did shoot down in the aerial combat. One of them, who was on my tail at the time there, I outmaneuvered. We were very, very close to the ground, and he spun into the ground, but I was given credit for that aircraft.
Yeah, even though you didn't fire a shot, you got credit for it.
Even though I didn't fire a shot, I was given credit for the aircraft. So actually, I shot down 2, but I was given credit for that 3rd.
What kind of aircraft were they?
They were FW-190s.
Okay, and you were flying out of where?
I was flying out of Italy. We were flying out of a airfield in Ramatelli, Italy, that was right on the coast of the Adriatic Sea, around the area of Foggia, Italy.
Mm-hmm. This is Gary Lilly. Can you tell us about how that combat ensued, how it opened up? Tell us about how it opened up, and tell us about the first 2 planes.
Actually, the way the combat opened up is we were making this fighter sweep, and we were slightly above a flight of 3 FW-190s. I don't believe they saw us at the time, and maybe they did, I wasn't sure. But I called them out, and one of the people in the flight asked me to take the lead, and I opened up the throttle and bored in and had a dead shot on the lead plane in front of me. And as I hit him, his left wingman broke to the left there, and I broke after him, and I turned inside of him, and then I hit him. And then I happened to see these tracers come by me, and I look back, and here's this 190 on my tail, and I immediately flipped over on my back and split us toward the ground. And I made this diving turn around the ground, and he followed after me, and on the pullout there, he just wasn't able to make the pullout the way I did, and he rushed into the ground.
Harry, we have to take a break now. We'll be right back after these messages.
Okay.
And we're back on Veterans Radio talking with Harry Stewart, a member of the Tuskegee Airmen in World War II, flying P-51 Mustangs out of Italy. Gary, you had a question?
I do. Harry, periodically we interview guests that have talked to the people they opposed in the years after the war. I was wondering, had you ever come into contact with a German or Italian pilot? And if so, what was their opinion of the P-51? And if you haven't, can you tell us what you may have heard of their what they said?
I have talked to a couple of former German fighter pilots there, and of course they were always in awe of the maneuverability of the P-51. Other than that, that's about all I had heard.
What do you think made the Mustang so special?
I think that it was probably the aerodynamic design of it, coupled with that two-stage supercharger that it used. It developed only, when I say only, about 1,550 horsepower, but the airfoil was so smooth it had what they called the laminar flow wing, and that airfoil was so smooth, and then that distinctive scoop that it had, the intercooler system that it had underneath it, just made the plane extremely fast and extremely maneuverable. It was, I will say this, it was kind of a fragile aircraft. Had I been doing ground support, I think I would rather fly the P-47. That air-cooled, that liquid-cooled engine was very, very vulnerable to having a problem. And if you lose it, the engine would overheat right away, and you'd lose your engine. Plus, the airframe was pretty fragile. I heard Chuck Yeager talking about the G-suit and pulling 4 Gs in the P-51, and he said the maximum you could pull was about 6 Gs, something like that. Well, aircraft like the P-47, you could pull 9 Gs and that 10 Gs with no problem, but I think you could pull the wings off the P-51 if you pulled it in tight enough.
Well, I think the P-47 was another whole show there. The Jug, as it was known, was
That's right.
Was probably the sturdiest airplane of World War II.
That's correct. I agree with you there.
Some of the things I've seen film of what they've done, just remarkable.
In fact, their primary mission later in the war was ground support or ground attack, was it not?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
I will say this, from the knowledge of the Jug, I had about 350 hours in the P-51, and I have about 1,200 hours in the Jug.
Oh.
So I'm pretty familiar with it, and there are stories about the Jug completely losing a cylinder and still flying. It was an amazing plane as far as ruggedness was concerned.
When did you fly the Jug?
Oh, I flew in fact, as a winner of the 1949 fighter gunnery meet, it was the Jug I was flying at that time. But I flew the Jug at Lockbourne Air Force Base. That's now Rickenbacker Field in south of Columbus, Ohio. I flew the Jug from late 46 until the 332nd was disbanded in June 1949.
Wow. I had no idea that you flew the Jug.
And flew the latest model of the Jug. That was the P-47N, which had a war emergency horsepower of 2,500.
Did the rest of the team also fly the Jug for the contest?
Yes, the three of us flew the Jug. The planes that were in that competition were the P-51, the P-82, which was the twin 51.
The twin Mustang.
That twin Mustang. The P-61 and the P-47N. Actually, they broke the competition up into the conventional aircraft, which we were flying. That's the piston engine, and the jets. And the reason being the jets at that time could not fire or could not be equipped with rockets The jets were the F-84, the F-86, and the F-80 that were being flown in that competition. So actually, there were two winners in that competition in 1949. It was a jet class and a conventional aircraft class.
Harry, getting back to World War II, I remember reading about water injection in the engines for moments of high anxiety. You'd hit the water injection button and pick up a little boost, but it was hard on the engines.
Yes.
What planes carried that?
51 had water, and the P-47 had water also. This was, you go through the gate, in fact, this was the war emergency. Right at the end of the throttle quadrant there, they had a little wire. It was a safety wire, but, if you really found yourself in trouble and you wanted to really get that engine going and that plane going, you jam the throttle through that wire, and they called it the gate, jam it through the gate there, and you would get water at the time there, and that would take the horsepower up to beyond the actual safe limits of the engine, because once you did that, if you got back with the aircraft, you usually had to turn the aircraft in, and it had to get a new engine because of the you exceeded really the performance limits of the engine at the time.
Is that what they called military power?
That's right.
Okay.
They called it military or war emergency.
I want to go back to the air competition for just a moment. Was that the last time the props competed in that competition?
Yes, that was the last time the props competed in that competition there.
Uh-huh.
And the score, it was, yeah, that was the last time. It was a competition that took place every 2 years after that. This was the first competition that the Air Force had after becoming autonomous. Mm-hmm. Prior to that time and prior to World War II, there were other fighter gunnery meets, but at the time, it was the Army Air Corps that was flying. So as the United States Air Force, this was the first fighter gunnery, all Air Force fighter gunnery competition that was held, and that was at Las Vegas, Nevada in May of 1949.
Harry, I don't know whether you know this or not, but I was doing some research on this program, and there's folklore out there that says that the P-51 from concept to first flight was 100 days. Have you heard that?
Yes, and I think that's very, 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 very true.
No, it's not true.
No.
No, I found that out too, that what happened, and this actually happened before World War II. I always heard that the Mustang was developed during the war. Well, what happened was that the British contracted with North American Aviation to build the P-51. They wanted a plane to defend the homeland, and they were looking at the P-40, and they were looking at souping it up a little bit, and North American Aviation said, why do that? We'll just build you a new airplane. And 102 days later, this was in 1940,
okay,
they rolled the plane out. But when they rolled the plane out, it had no engine, it had no fuel, and it had no brakes. That the plane didn't actually fly for another year.
I see.
I didn't know that. I found that interesting.
No, I'd certainly like to look that up. I'm going to go to Google or something and take a look and see if I can find that information, because I did not know that myself.
Yeah, I went to Google and found it under P-51. And I can't remember which of the particular web pages it was, but one of them had the history of the Mustang, and it was quite interesting. I
know the first engine in it was not good. It was a failure. That was the Allison engine. It didn't work out too well.
Right. And then they went to a Merlin, I believe.
I think they went to the Rolls-Royce, didn't they?
Oh, I thought they went to the Merlin, and then they went to the Rolls-Royce that was made by Packard in the United States.
That's right.
Oh, I thought the Merlin was the Rolls-Royce.
Right. Packard built Rolls-Royce, I thought, or Packard built Merlin. I don't know. I never got those straight.
Harry, thank you for joining us on Veterans Radio today. It's been a pleasure having you with us. And we have to thank our sponsors today, especially the Marine Scholars Fund. Until next week, when Bob Gould and Dale Throneberry are in here talking about Marines. And what is it about the Marines?
what are they doing? You know, they'll tell you all about it next week. Until then, I'm Ken Rogie. You are dismissed. The opinions expressed on this program are those of our guests and are not necessarily those of Veterans Radio or this station. Veterans Radio is a production of Veterans Radio, LLC.